Hey everybody. Right, let's get this adjusted. Get myself more central. No, that's too far, Right. I'm not quite Hassan with the fastidiousness of his stream layout. You know, I don't have all of these perfectly positioned toys and dogs and whatever the hell else he has. Is that a UAE flag? Yeah. I just feel like the people of the United Arab Emirates need solidarity at this moment. More movies with George Wendt drinking coffee. I mean, I don't know who that is, but who's George Wendt? Oh, Norm from Cheers. What are you talking about? Why him? Ask me anything about coffee. Yeah, you can ask me anything about coffee. Coffee used to... ooh, wow, there's some crazy, wacky setups here. Look at that. Whoa. That one's not very good, I don't think. UAE solidarity. Look. This is a UAE flag, right? If it's not, I've been missold. They are extremely similar. George Wendt. I liked... I haven't really watched Cheers too much, but I liked the episode of Frasier with Norman... with George Wendt in it, Norm. Like, I'm aware of it. He's just enough of a cultural icon that I'm aware of his character. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't used to drink coffee, really. I only started drinking it like 10 years ago, which I appreciate is a fairly long time ago. But you know what I mean? Like, I didn't grow up drinking it. I grew up drinking tea. And I just ended up getting into coffee. And now I feel really groggy and unhappy without it in the morning, which is probably not good. It's funny, though, because it's the first... Animaniacs. Well, I haven't heard of that in a while. Oh. Do I want to watch him eating beans? So... yeah, it's probably the first... well, maybe not the first, but it's the first video in a while where it's led with a question that has actually... sort of haunted me, or well, I should say puzzled me, but maybe haunted me for a long time, just in my everyday life. It's like one of those questions where you're just like, When did coffee shops take over? Why is everybody just sitting, drinking coffee, or working in a coffee shop as a barista, or working on their laptop in a coffee shop, or some combination of those? So, yeah, I did one January where I only had I didn't have any caffeine or alcohol. So I only drank water. That was what it was. I only drank water that January, and yeah, it was interesting in that it was like successful in terms of my sleep was quite good, my productivity was quite good, my mental health was quite good, but I was just so fucking bored. You got to drug yourself one way or another. You got to enhance life. I think most people do one way, like that, and it might not be a substance. It could be like exercise is their drug. But I think most people have something that they kind of need that gives them a high, otherwise they get upset and groggy. And I mean, most of us are addicted to screens at this stage, right? Do I use subscriber-only videos to practice for the public videos, or do I just use them to muse on topics? A little from column A, a little from column B. Yeah, sometimes I'll put something out there that I'm not really sure about, or that's undeveloped. Other times they're like bonuses, addendums to the main videos that I just think would have been too much for the main video, slight tangents or related topics. Yeah. But if you watch all of my old videos, then you'd be like, you'd start to see a through line to my later videos. Thank you, Lice. You literally just learned you have undiagnosed ADHD based on your reaction to coffee. What is your reaction to coffee that it calms you down? Oh, George Wendt is dead. Yeah, I guess when do you notice when something that's gradually deteriorating? At what point do you notice it? I suppose one I suppose it's like it's one of those things where there's probably somebody notices it, and then there's like media coverage or some like person starts a campaign or something, and people are like, oh yeah, fucking hell, it is Welsh shit round here. Coffee stress. Yeah, I think people do have different reactions even if they have ADHD. I wonder if I have it, but I don't know. So, I don't know. I react to coffee. Coffee gives me the shakes. If I don't, I have to eat really and then have it, and then I like it. But I don't know. I'm undiagnosed, so whatever. Everyone's neurodiverse these days, aren't they? It probably is overrepresented on the internet, though, which would explain why there seems to be a higher prevalence reported on like social media. Has any country ever implemented austerity and it worked as intended? Well, Ireland had a kind of okay experience with it because they had a massive export boom and they had loads of corporate investment due to becoming basically a tax haven. So, that their overall economy and growth actually went quite well, but whether that was like a balanced economy, I mean, like most areas, most countries, their housing sector is really bad. There's lots of problems with the rise of the right and resistance to like immigration. But they moved towards a growing private sector economy. I think a growing private sector economy can buy people off kind of temporarily. Well, anxiety makes you active, doesn't it? It makes you do stuff. It's an unfortunate reality of being human. What's the most bonkers thing a mainstream economist has said to your face? Well, once we were debating whether the whole debate over the economics curriculum and how it should change in response to the financial crisis, and all of the complaints that students were making that it was too monolithic, too much neoclassical theory, as it's called, too detached from the real world, very abstract, not really applying it to evidence or testing it. And one of the professors in the discussion said, who was like this microeconomic theorist, so he dealt a lot with these models, and he said, well, they're students. They signed up to the economics degree. They knew what they were getting themselves into. And I was just like, dude, do you know what like a credence good is? Because the nature of education is that you literally do not know what you're getting into. I mean, you might have some kind of signals, but it can be completely different. And not completely different even in a superficial sense, like, oh, this apple tastes different to what I thought. Like, it can be uncomfortable and like strange, and it requires quite a lot of like effort to engage with. And so it's just the weirdest good to nominate as one for like rational expectations, where you know what's going to happen. The late Weimar Republic. I see, living in the UK, I feel like I'm in more of a managed decline type situation. I don't know what the historical comparison is. What is the historical comparison? Roman Empire? Let's not go there. I mean, maybe the Netherlands, but the Netherlands was never quite as politically dominant. I never have cold coffee. I'd never have cold coffee. I don't see the point. I just like hot drinks. Ireland adopted GNI instead of GDP. Well, gross national income. Yeah, which would have counted the foreign investment versus... It would have counted the foreign investment, right? So they... But regardless of the measure... I still think there were real effects, right, from having... There's money, in the economy, particularly in Dublin. And I think the Irish economy did relatively well. But I didn't, I don't know if there's any austerity success story. Someone said something about Kuwait. Someone said, I think you could imagine that if you'd made some really big investments, efficiency investments, by building new systems and, like a sort of, let's say a sort of cybernetic type thing, because everyone likes cybernetics online. If you made a really good big investment and you built really efficient systems and computerized things and automated things, you can imagine that the public sector might, over the medium and long term require fewer workers. So with that big upfront investment, you can imagine, yes, you could actually make reasonable redundancies down the line and end up with a better functioning public service. It's just that that's not what Austerians do. They just cut stuff for ideological reasons here and now. They're not actually interested in saving money. So most austerity in practice isn't sensible. I don't know about the stock market. I don't know about your stock market question, but you have to ask Gary or one of those other guys. Ben Felix, Patrick Boyle. Oh yeah, the Against Money. That's a good book. Against Money by Mason and Jayadev. We're reading it in the Unlearning Economics Reading Club, which is like you have to be a certain Patreon or YouTube tier to be a part of it, but you should get synced automatically to the Discord, and that's where it's hosted. So if you want to do that, sign up. Or if you are already on that tier and you're not synced to the Discord, then, well, I don't know. Let me know somehow. I'll double check it, actually. I think it should sync you automatically, or you don't have Discord. Yeah, it's really good. Against Money. It's about like how economists have conceptualized money wrong, and how the money economy is actually something that you should think about first and foremost, I think, when you think about the economy, which sounds weird because you think, well, economists must always deal with money. That's what people say when money is like, when economics is brought up, people just always think of money, but it's not. Usually economists reason from models with like real resources, real like that they sort of have like technology or demographics or preferences. So, you know, what people want and what relative to what people are capable of producing. And it's almost like a barter economy underpinning the whole model. And then it's like you can, money is not really relevant in that formulation. It's like you can model the barter economy and then money is kind of incidental. It's just a measuring stick. Whereas Mason and Jayadev are saying, no, money is the first thing. It makes things move. A funny thesis for your Masters in Finance. I don't know. The Black-Scholes equation, does it ever work? Coffee has historically been associated with revolution. The French philosophers arguing the monarchy should end were doing so in coffee houses. That's true. You know who really hates those intellectuals in coffee houses is Thomas Sowell. He talks a bit about that. I don't know if he mentions coffee, but he definitely is angry at that image of them coming to the conclusion that everyone is equal and we should proceed based on science, progress and reason, as opposed to tradition and existing institutions. He's very angry at those coffee supping philosophers. USSR, Portugal, Spain, yeah. USSR collapsed quite spectacularly, though. I don't think Britain's going to collapse spectacularly. Portugal and Spain are quite a good one. But I think pubs can be locations where people organise politically as well. I think they have been, like football matches have been, right, historically. So I think beer can get you rowdy as well. I mean, your point is well taken. Beer does dull your senses, whereas coffee enhances them. But yeah. Hi, Onyx. Oh, you've got the I still haven't played Silksong. I'm a patient gamer. You guys ever been on that subreddit, Patient Gamers? It's one of my favourite subreddits. Wait, what's this video?
Would
This
you
is
like
prime
to take a
content,
survey?
Okay.
Do you eat beans?
Would you like to see a new movie starring George Wendt?
Do you eat beans with George Wendt?
Would you like to see George Wendt eating beans in a movie?
Do you eat beans at George Wendt movies?
Would you like to see George Wendt in a bean-eating movie?
How many beans do you eat at George Wendt bean-eating movie?
How many bean-eating movies have you seen with George Wendt?
Would you like to take a survey?
No, we wouldn't, but he would.
Do you eat beans?
Would you like to see a new movie starring George Wendt?
Do you eat beans
Where does
with
George Wendt
Wendt?
appear?
Would you
That's
like
what I
to
want
see
to
George
know.
Wendt eating beans
he in
in a
it?
movie?
Do you eat beans at George Wendt? Survey!
No, we wouldn't,
What the
but
fuck?
he...
All right, that was too much. That was too much for me. I love the way I searched patient gamers, and like the first thing is like, what's wrong with the patient gamers sub? That sub in general is a bunch of elitist pricks. It's all holier than thou writing exercises with convoluted titles. I honestly did not get that from patient gamers. I just thought it was people who didn't want to play something as soon as it was released. Maybe it's a little bit pretentious, but fuck me, like, this is the internet. Alright, okay, I'm immediately taking back what I've said. Prey 2017, the very definition of player agency. Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, the good, the bad, the questionable. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is a messy 9 out of 10, which is more interesting than a clean 8 and hits harder than a lot of 10s. That sounds like it's written by fucking Claude. That sounds like AI. Alright, maybe it is a bit pretentious, but the point is simply that I like to be a patient gamer and not play things as soon as they're released. Thank you, Jeffrey Grabble. Coffee milk. I've never had coffee milk. Is my intended audience layman? Well, no, it's not. It's not. I think you probably do have to. Yeah, I don't think my intended audience is like people who who literally know nothing about economics. I think you have to have not just like, you have to have probably a bit of a base of understanding, or just pay attention very, very closely. And I don't pay attention that closely to YouTube videos. Like, I remember watching Andrea Collier, the physics YouTuber, and most of her videos are pretty accessible, but some of them are like, they actually have equations in them, and I was just like second screening them, and I was like, well, I just don't understand this. And I thought maybe some people feel like that about some of my videos. When I taught classes on the American Revolution, I'd set up my classroom as a penny university coffee shop while we explored historical documents. That's it. That's great. It is interesting, that historic role of coffee shops. I mean, it was only men in the 17th century, obviously, because women, women can't drink coffee or discuss politics or business or society and life, as we know. So naturally, they weren't allowed in these coffee shops. But you can, I think, the third spaces thing is, I think that's where a lot of political organisation takes place. Because what are you going to organise politically at home? Probably not very much. And at work, I mean, maybe unions, but like generally, not general politics, right? So the pub, the coffee shop, football game, the town square, I suppose, in the times of yore. Right, I've lost. You're playing Baldur's Gate 1. Silksong. Yeah, everyone says great things about Silksong. I replayed Hollow Knight recently, because I played it for the first time a few years ago. I replayed it and I got I did 112% or whatever, which means you've done everything except the pantheon of the gods, which I was just like, fuck it, it's just too long, too hard. But I did everything else, and I was like, yeah, it's great. I think world building is like something that I really value in games or also TV shows or whatever. Things have to be cerebral to interest me, I think, which is very pretentious. Maybe I do belong on Patient Gamers. What is the feeling about factor investing or investing in ETFs in general in this community? I started to feel this and it starts feeling really icky. I don't know. I mean, I don't really have a massive problem with investing. I'd probably swerve like fossil fuel companies or arms companies or something like that. Like I've got my adverts on YouTube are disabled for those. You don't get those adverts, I don't think, or you shouldn't do. But yeah, I don't really think investing or finance has to be a dirty word. I actually think that although I have my real huge objections to the modern financial system, it's like investing and credit. I can't imagine a modern economy without them, because you have to be able to make money available to people in the present so that they can use it to invest, right? And make money in the future, right? And that is like the essence of credit. What would I recommend to an economics layman? I mean, I do have that that reading list. Ha-Joon Chang's really, really accessible. I think you don't really get as accessible as Ha-Joon Chang. There's the core economics textbook, which is very basic. Yeah, Ha-Joon Chang, I don't know. John Lanchester. What do you mean Thatcher was economically conservative? Or you're saying she wasn't economically conservative? She wasn't. Do you mean she wasn't always free market? I guess she was pragmatic. Her cuts were not as big as the cuts that the Conservative government made. But I don't know about not conservative, because I think it's a cluster of behaviours and beliefs you would think of as defining someone's political ideology. It wouldn't just be one or two things. She definitely did things that weren't always 100% free market, but she still declared war on the unions, privatised things, reduced taxes, especially on the rich, deregulation and the Big Bang in finance. You've got no choice but to invest if you want to retire. Well, that's true. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a pension, right? Because I'm self-employed. I mean, I have a pension from working, but it's like, whatever. I don't know how much is in it. It'll probably sustain me for about a month. Yeah. But like, I can't imagine not interfacing with the financial system at the moment. There was an interesting, I think, interview with because there are these kind of green investors. I always think, why socialists should invest. I remember watching this and I thought it was kind of cool. Hijinks. Pacific Drive. I don't know though. You fix up a car. Should I tell you what I don't like in games? And it's not that I don't. It's not that I think it's bad. It's just that it doesn't suit me. Is the like too much gear, too much fucking like tweaking and like preparing, and like that's why, yeah, like getting all the gear, like figuring out all the stats and shit. I just like to play, which is kind of difficult because most games have something like that. Fun economics book, Adam's Fallacy. Yeah, Adam's Fallacy is good by Duncan Foley. Has my opinion changed about worker democracy? No, not at all. I don't think I'm any more for or against it than when I made my video. It doesn't have any discernible drawbacks based on the evidence, and I think that there are intrinsic values to giving. There's an intrinsic value to giving people a voice, and there are also benefits in terms of equalising pay and reducing worker turnover and increasing worker well-being. John Paulson, I'm not entirely sure what you mean by conservative, though. Do you mean like reserved? Because she was radical. But conservatism is radical. This reminds me of Corey Robin's The Reactionary Mind. That book about what conservatism actually is. Because it's not being reserved. It never has been. It's always been about opposing change, and you have to do that actively, not passively. And most conservatives kind of dislike the establishment as much as leftists. Like even Edmund Burke was really anti the Ancien regime in France. He thought the regime was decadent and wasteful, and he actually thought that it kind of deserved its fate. So that's not, just preserving the status quo is like, that's inertia, right? That's like existing institutions defending themselves. But conservative intellectuals, they think something very different. My next video is going to be about this a bit. Make more reaction videos. No. Should I tell you the problem with reaction videos? I think firstly, they really stoke the parasocial relationship. So you get a lot of hate from the person you're reacting to, from people who have a really strong parasocial relationship and are so angry that you've criticized them and dunked on them or whatever. But I do also think that people who you attract the wrong type of audience for yourself. Now, that's not to say that in a perfect world, I wouldn't do reaction videos. I think if the platform were less algorithmic, I could do kind of honest reactions, honest measured reactions. The daily disinformation concerns about Ground News. The problem with Ground News.
This video sponsor.
To be fair, that looks like an interesting video, this one. Because I was sponsored by Ground News at one point. Then I moved away from sponsorship altogether. But, yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't want to guess. No, MIDI doctors, I suspected you might not be being serious. But, you're a Burkean conservative. Are you really? A Burkean conservative? I do think that probably means different things to different people. But respect for... Okay, so here it is. I think there is an argument for conservatism, and this is what I go into in Thomas Sowell Part 3, because I go into not just Part 1 of Part 3. It's like Harry Potter. There's 4 parts to Part 3, and it's going to be long. I'm going to release the first part, which is more of a direct debunking of Sowell's work on intellectuals, as a standalone but paywalled video, and then it will be included in the final video, which will be public, but just partly for reasons of pacing and feedback, the time it takes to edit it. But anyway, so it's about anti-intellectualism. But I want to go into conservatism and its relationship with anti-intellectualism. And one of the things I do in part 3 is I discuss in depth what truth I think there is in the conservative respect for existing institutions. Because I do think that there is some truth in the notion that existing institutions have evolved and survived various pressures, and they have been found to work to some extent, and moving away from them can be quite difficult and maybe cause more problems than it solves, especially if you do it drastically. So I do think that that's true to an extent. It runs up against the obvious issue. Depending on what you do with that, you run up against some very obvious issues, such as existing institutions can sometimes be abominable, more abominable than whatever you would replace them with. Existing institutions can be slavery, apartheid. Existing institutions can be, maybe not as dramatic as slavery and apartheid, but if you think of like the existing distribution of wealth, right, and how much corruption and problems it's causing that Elon Musk is a trillionaire, right, that's existing institutions. I don't think you can really have a pro-existing institution mantra, but you can maybe treat it as more of a philosophical position that you're like, okay, these institutions exist, why? What do we do with them? Have some respect, rather than just thinking you can rationally design everything from the ground up using baseline principles, which I think is what a lot of 20th century intellectualism did, from like planned cities, Le Corbusier's cities, like garden cities, through to like collectivization and Stalin, of course, but Tanzanian urbanization, all the stuff that James Scott reviews in Seeing Like a State. A lot of these top-down visions where they were like, this will be the rational order, we will do this because this has been considered and this is intellectual and factual and logical, unlike the messy institutions that we are faced with. I think that is a conservatism as it exists, conservative intellectualism is a good response to that, right? But there are so many good changes that we could make that aren't the great leap forward, that I think conservatism will only take you so far. And the problem with actual conservatives is obviously it's not just that in practice they resist any change, it's that in practice they don't follow their own logic all the way through. So if you look at like having an opposing top-down schemes, right, okay, fine, then why do you support the invasion of Iraq and Iran, right? Why do you support banning abortion? Why do you support having the drinking age at 21? Right, there's conservatives in practice advocate all sorts of bans and top-down schemes. So that point doesn't work in their favour in practice ideologically, even if there is like maybe an ontological point there about like existing reality having proved its worth in some sense and being hard to change, and you don't want to upset things too much and just bulldoze in and think that your ideas are going to be better than the ideas that have been built up over centuries. So yeah, I go into that with a lot of detail about Daenerys Targaryen in Game of Thrones, of course. Blueprints. So many people have recommended Blueprints to me. To tomorrow, were you... Oh shit, chat isn't showing. Why isn't fucking chat showing up? I knew something was... You know when you know something's weird? Well, that's only... I knew something was off, but like it's... Why is... Okay. Huh. Yeah. Well, well, well. Why? Why? Just why? Chat box. One second. What I'm a little bit confused about is where the... I really don't understand why it just isn't working. Have I considered writing a book about Soul? Postmodern I haven't read McManus' Postmodern Conservatism. I am familiar with his work on this, though. Do I agree with the state owning pubs? I don't know. I don't think... To regulate the consumption of alcohol is a social ill. I don't know. I like alcohol. So I don't know. Man, I'm like... You know what? This is... Something weird's happened here because I'm not actually getting subscription notifications either. Larry David, Jerry Seinfeld. That sounds like something that I just haven't followed at all. Right. What I'm really confused about is how there's no look. Always show messages, hide delay. There is no text color. Last time there is just no like option to change the source. I can get that restream chat, but that's like... That's old. And it only does Twitch. Alcohol is bad. It's a very common opinion on the internet, but I'm sorry. You will not take my pints away. All my tins, even. Pubs are such a great British institution. And I mean, the other thing about conservatism is that it doesn't. The relationship between like the small c conservatism, the reserved type of conservatism, and capitalism is a little bit fraught, I think, because capitalism continually changes and upends things. And it wasn't until Thatcher, I think Thatcher and Reagan, really, that conservatives like fully got on board with capitalism. I mean, yeah, working in a bar is a fucking pain in the ass. There's no two ways about that. But, you know, if it were a cooperative, it would be better. I'm getting really frustrated with this, so 1 second. That is the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Hello guys, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm gonna show you how to fix Streamlabs connecting to chat. If you're having trouble with Streamlabs connecting to your chat, this quick fix will help you get back on track. Let's get started. First, open the Streamlabs application on your computer. Make sure you are logged into your account. Once Streamlabs is open, look for the settings icon, which looks like a gear, in the bottom left corner of the window. Click on it to open the settings menu. In the settings menu, find and click on the Advanced tab on the left-hand side. This will open up Advanced Settings options for Streamlabs. Scroll down in the Advanced Settings until you reach the Sources section. Here you'll see an option labeled Enable Browser Source Hardware Acceleration. Uncheck this box to disable hardware acceleration for browser sources. Next, you need to log out of Streamlabs. Go back to your settings and select Log Out.
Right,
Once
okay,
you've
so I'd
logged
have
out,
to
close
actually
the
stop
Streamlabs
the stream
application
to do this.
completely. Then reopen Streamlabs and log back into your account using your credentials.
So you're just
Now
telling
check
me
if
to...
Streamlabs connects to your chat. Open the chat window and see if it loads properly. This fix...
Ah. Right. Right, okay, so that would require like a proper restart. It's at the front, so it shouldn't... Oh, God, I don't know. I don't know. Oh, thank you, Arrowhead. I mean, this is a glorified turn it off and on again, right? Like,
should resolve the issue, and your chat should now connect without any problems. And there you have it.
yeah. It's a good thing that I pay Streamlabs like however much money every month for it to periodically crash out on me. Yeah. Yeah, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. But hey, what are you gonna do? None of you can see anything. The Yugoslavian economy. Oh no, I haven't. I haven't visited that really since I said a couple of things about it in my Work of Democracy video. I think one of the problems with the Yugoslavia economy is like it was so short-lived and had so many historical complexities that I feel like it's hard to get into. I do want to make a video about market socialism and whether it works though. Yeah, it looks like I honestly like I also read a couple of articles that were just AI generated. It's fucking ridiculous. In fairness, if I like turned it off and on again, it'd probably fix it, but whatever. Undercaffeinated. I've already had 2 coffees. Maybe I'm crashing. Maybe that's what it is. Wait, I might actually... I'm going to watch this Ground News video because I'm interested. It's only like 11 minutes long, so...
This video sponsor Ground News.
Ground News to sponsor this video.
Ground News. Ground News is my favorite.
Ground News.
Ground News.
The Ground News.
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 Ground News. Ground News.
Ground News. So, if you have watched any kind of videos on YouTube covering business, finance, the economy, or current events, you have almost certainly had Ground News drilled into your subconscious. For-profit news coverage has become increasingly partisan as media companies have figured out that telling people what they want to hear makes way more money than doing real journalism. Ground News is apparently here to fix all that by highlighting journalistic biases, fact-checking misinformation, and alerting you when you might not be getting the whole story. That's the pitch anyway, and they are spending an ungodly amount of cash on influencers and traditional advertising to get the word out about it. Now, putting aside for a second that this money had to come from somewhere, the bigger problem is this whole platform is probably only going to make things worse.
So, Ground News do have loads of money, and I'm a little bit confused about how they have it. I was hoping to see me in that intro too. Yeah. I wasn't there.
Long as events have been recorded and reported on, there has always been an inherent bias to how that news is portrayed. Modern commercial media outlets are big businesses that have to keep their investors happy. And to keep their investors happy, they have to keep their advertisers happy. And to keep their advertisers happy, they need access to news sources. And to maintain access to their news sources, they can't really push too hard against established corporate interests. Important stories have been left on the editor's desk because it would make the wrong people upset for as long as journalism has existed. But you have probably noticed that it does kind of feel like it's getting worse. Today, depending on what news outlet you choose to watch or read, you might get a completely opposite interpretation of events.
Zelensky really screwed up.
President Trump is not just changing American foreign policy. He is reorienting America's moral compass.
A supposedly neutral platform like Ground News that aggregates these opposing opinions masquerading as news would be great, if it worked. But there are a few problems with adding yet another filter between you and current events. And at the very least, before you spend $100 a year on yet another subscription, you should understand what those problems are. Number one is who it gets its money from.
I love how this video just has like all of the memes in it, all of the main memes. This is definitely a YouTube video.
Number two is the oversimplified way it categorizes biases. Number three is the use of AI to further remove you from what is actually happening. Number four is the better, simpler, cheaper alternatives you can use to do exactly the same thing. And finally, the biggest problem of all is the biases it can't account for. So yeah, Starting with that money problem. They claim in their advertising that they are independently subscriber funded.
Ground News themselves are independently owned and funded by subscribers like myself, and they're vetted by 3 different independent news monitoring organizations.
But that's stretching the truth so far that it might as well be a lie. All of the advertising they have been doing is not cheap. There is a reason you can't avoid their message, and that's because they are conservatively spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month here on YouTube alone. And that's on top of expenses like hosting their website, paying their staff, and renting their office. All of this costs a lot of money. And while today the company might have a lot of subscribers, it didn't start out like this. They are a private company, so financials and public records are scarce. But according to their own website, the company was backed by a handful of mission-aligned independent individual investors with no ties to corporate media, big tech, or government affiliation.
I love how that's just like a red flag now. Like saying, I'm not mainstream media. I'm like, I'm sorry, like, I hate legacy media as much as the next person, but give me that. Just say you work for The Guardian, you work for The Telegraph, whatever. I am not affiliated. I am like a really rich person who's unaffiliated is worse than those.
That sounds great, but it's almost so specific that it raises some red flags. If I was asking you to come and hang out with some new pals I just met, and I told you, don't worry, because they're a bunch of chill guys who have no ties to the KGB, the mob, or ivory poachers, that's not a great sign. Now, of course, that's a silly, speculative example, but all we have is speculation. Because for a company that's all about transparency of information, that's all they have ever said about the source of their founding capital. They have actually been questioned about these investors multiple times online before, and every time they respond with the exact same generic copy and paste from their About page. Realistically, most private equity and venture capitalists are not aligned with corporate media, big tech, or the government. But that doesn't mean they don't have their own objectives, which is primarily making a profit. Now, I actually reached out to Ground News for further clarification around how much money they raised from their investors, and what their background actually was, instead of just what it wasn't. But as of the time of releasing this video, I have not heard back from them. Now, they are a rapidly growing business with a lot going on, so not taking the time to respond to some random wannabe YouTuber is not a smoking gun by itself. But it should be a simple question with a simple answer for a company that is built on transparency. So anyway, I had to do a little bit more digging.
You know what this reminds me of? This channel, it reminds me of... yeah, thank you for verifying that you're not trustworthy. This reminds me of this... what the fuck? How Money Works. You know the channel How Money Works? Like, the voice, the intonation, the use of stock footage, the length of the video.
News is actually the second business started by a holding company called Snapwise Incorporated. It was founded by siblings Harleen Kaur and Sukh Singh, and before reshaping global media, they worked for an impressive list of consulting companies, startups, and even NASA. The first company they founded was called UCIC, which was supposed to be like a real-time version of Google Street Views, but is now defunct. The point is that with their background in startups and management consulting, these non-affiliated investors are most likely just wealthy institutions or individuals that the founders had developed relationships with. It's also not immediately disqualifying, but it should also be noted that the founders of Ground News don't have a background in journalism. Realistically, they aren't building this company after decades of seeing the problems in the failing journalism industry. They are building it for the same reason they started their other company, because it's a trendy business that can raise cash. But again, every single issue that has been raised so far easily be addressed with a little bit of transparency around their financials and their investors. As a brand that makes a big deal in all of their advertising about exposing who really owns the media companies you are getting your news from, their own vagueness about the same issue is ironic at best. But where their money is coming from is actually far from the biggest problem here. The bigger issue is who is not getting the money. Ground News works by scraping articles from thousands of different sources and then bringing together the bullet points on their website. The problem this creates is that most people won't go and read from those sources after they have seen the highlights, which means those media organizations are denied ad or subscription revenue from their work. Now, I know it's hard to feel bad for giant media companies, but remember, just a few months ago, Honey was exposed for being the biggest scam in YouTube history by stealing affiliate revenue of social media influencers. Now, I'm not calling Ground News a scam. In fact, I really want them to just tweak a few things to provide a much better service. But this revenue shifting is basically exactly the same thing as what Honey was doing. But I would argue that, as bad as they can be, news outlets need money more than influencers do. Part of
So I forget the money thing, the Honey thing. It rings a bell, but I don't remember what exactly happened there. It all goes back to the lizards. It all goes back to the lizards.
the reason that journalism has become more polarized is that it's very hard to make money by just reporting the news these days. Real investigative journalism is slow and expensive, and most stories are not that interesting to most people. Making news
Chapo Trap
that is more
House.
like reality television that occasionally recounts current events in a partisan way is far more engaging, and in the attention economy, engagement equals dollars. Ground News has clearly seen this problem, and they are capitalizing on it, but unfortunately with their current business model, they are most likely only making it worse. Now, like all good modern startups, Ground News has also introduced AI features to make digesting news even easier by taking articles from the left, right, and center and running them through a chatbot to give you some dot-point summary of an issue. It is easier to read, but it makes it even less likely that Ground News users will engage with the actual news publishers, denying them revenue for their work. Now, a final point about the money is how much of it they are spending on advertising. You have probably seen more ads for Ground News than you have for any news site that actually publishes their own stories. And this is highly indicative of a company that is trying to grow at all costs. Anyway, this still isn't the biggest problem of all. The biggest problem is that the whole basis for this platform is a fundamental misunderstanding of what new bias really is. Yes, it's obvious that Breitbart News has more conservative reporting than Vox, but if you needed a website to tell you that, then you might have bigger problems. But the real issue is that categorizing entire media outlets using a simple left-wing, right-wing framework is, as the youth say, highly f***ing regarded. It depends entirely on the topic, the time, and even the individual journalist writing the story. There are lots of outlets that tend to be more progressive on social issues and conservative economically, or progressive economically with more conservative opinions about certain divisive topics. Lumping them all on a single left-right spectrum glosses over a massive amount of nuance, even if every article from a source like CNN or Russia Today was exactly the same. For example, Russia Today tends to be quite supportive of more progressive economic policy, but clearly on issues like the Ukraine war, it's, less forward-thinking. This also raises the question of exactly who gets to choose what center, left, or right actually means. Now, Ground News doesn't actually do this themselves. They outsource that to 3 different third-party agencies: Adfontes, All Sides, and Media Fact Check. Now, there are 3 problems with these organizations as it pertains to Ground News. The first problem is that most of their analysis is available to view for free on their own websites. So if you were just after someone to tell you what is left or right wing, you could save yourself an annual subscription. The second problem is that these organizations also highlight the areas where Ground News could take a step up in terms of credibility. For example, Adfontes Media has an extensive section about how their work is funded going all the way back to the initial investors in the business. The third problem is that despite all of that, they aren't exactly perfect themselves. This story posted by Russia Today about why Snowden chose to stay in Russia is apparently extremely reliable with no bias whatsoever according to one of the sources that Ground uses for their own scoring. So yeah, Ground News is spending lots of money that they got from somewhere on advertising a service that you can get for free and is probably not going to make you any more informed. Modern media is broken, but the solution is consuming less of it.
Okay, so I feel like he glossed. I would have liked to see some more in-depth comparisons there, like not but like why of the bias and stuff. Because I think obviously it is reductive to do the left versus right thing, but like he glossed over the reliability and accuracy thing a little bit, I think.
Not an app to compile more of it. But anyway, please subscribe, because from now on, you can just get the news you need to know. And if you can't trust the daily disinformation, who can you trust?
Okay, so that was a really quick video. At this point, the biggest red flag is being a YouTube sponsor. I tend to agree with that. I do think that's kind of true. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that video made some okay points, but it was way too short for what it was. Like, he glossed over. He said like 5. Made like 5 points. It's like I think yeah, he was. I don't know. He said like he was like, oh, this isn't. They're not that bad. I just want them to do a few tweaks. But I don't think he really even said what the tweaks were. It's just one of those YouTube videos that's like highlights a really something that is a problem. Makes some like okay, but not that insightful points. Doesn't spend enough time on them, but gets a lot of attention because like a lot of people have been thinking that. I don't know. Ground news is terrible for Indian news sources because 70% of our media are basically party papers. 29% are borderline conspiracy propaganda and 1% actually give a crap about reality. Yeah, I need it is interesting that Ground News don't actually do their own factuality and bias ratings, right? They yeah. I don't know though. I don't really like news aggregators. I would just rather get my news from the BBC. Like BBC is obviously has its problems, like with Palestine, right? But and they're way too scared of Trump and the right wing. But at the end of the day, it's pretty good for knowing what is happening in the world from a reasonably balanced perspective. I mean, you mentioned like about India. Obviously, the BBC is based in the UK, so it's good for UK and probably for a lot of Western sources. But like, yeah, maybe you wouldn't use it for other things. Scott Anderson's got a better video about Ground News. Are we just going to watch videos about Ground News? I probably won't watch that one now. There's a chance I've watched that one. A mild critique of Ground News. Okay. Why I'll never read another book about poverty. That looks like a good video. But I won't watch it now. So, anyway, that concludes the Ground News section of the stream. I was thinking of doing, most importantly, do I have 250,000 subscribers yet? The answer is no. I've literally been like, I don't even know what, I don't really check my analytics, but like, I've been sort of stuck on $200,000, ish for a while. I think, yeah, it was interesting. I was actually thinking of making a video about it, but like oh man, we are so, I'm 10 subscribers, guys. I'm 10 subscribers away. Not even kidding. I probably shouldn't show you all my figures actually. Especially since my ad revenue's there and it'll make you think that I'm rich. No, I don't know. People say don't share that shit. Maybe I shouldn't have. But whatever. I'm literally on 249,990 subscribers. Should we just watch the live count? Because if you look at... I can show you this. I can show you this. Does it help if you unsub and resub? Maybe. If you look at that, it's like the jump up to 50,000 was quite rapid. And then up to 100k took like, you know, another year. And then sort of, you know, 50,000 a year. But I've been... So I crossed, what, 200,000 2 years ago. So that's how long it's taken. Like, it's been a long time. I think it's like saturation point, partly because I think most people who are broadly in the like economic space or the bread cube space will probably be aware of me, might have seen one or two of my videos, and like if they were going to subscribe, they would have already, right? So that doesn't mean that I can't gain subscribers, and I did gain more with this video because I want to do more accessible Curiosity Gap stuff. I do want to do the economics of the Simpsons video. I just think that, like, yeah. Oh, thank you, Brady, sorry. How I left the left. Yeah, that would be... But I honestly, right, it is... Every creator knows this. If you are a right-wing channel, you will just get given money. And it doesn't matter if you're good or bad at it, particularly. It doesn't matter if you're a big channel. Like, one guy I was chatting to, I won't reveal their identity, but like, the guy was left-wing, but he was like a left-wing channel, and he was like, yeah, he knows personally someone who runs a really like a YouTube channel that's like got 50,000, 100,000 subscribers. Not really that big. They just got given 50 grand, $50,000 or something by some investor, some rich person. And like, that is, you hear stories that happens all the time with like right wing or like centrist channels. I've only been given money by like YouTube AdSense or Patreon, or well, my sponsors when I had them. But I can do more accessible stuff, like Simpsons economics videos. I think would be quite cool. I wanna continue doing my deep dives and long ones. Like, I've got one planned on central planning, but centrally planned actually on central planning, one might argue. But I do want to do some more accessible, shorter videos. Like the coffee video is an indication in that it's a move in that direction, even if it's still a little bit long and a little bit less accessible than I would have liked. It's insane how many viewers right-wing channels have when they're live. Do they have a lot? Dave Rubin's an idiot. Like Tim Pool. Tim Pool received money from Russia. Tim Pool is a moron. Dave Rubin is an idiot too. Ben Shapiro isn't an idiot, but he chooses to be. And he got all of this fucking money. Elden Ring economics. I do want to do one about gaming. Learning about economics via gaming. But like, I don't know. I would include the FromSoft games, but I want to take it in a surprising direction, not like a... I don't want to do like the economics of Victoria 3, partly because I hate Victoria 3, but also because it's too obvious, right? And anything you learn about the economy from like Victoria 3 or even like Age of Empires or RimWorld or City Skylines, it's all kind of built into the game. So it's like, it's not that insightful to be like, here's a game with an economy about the economy. It has certain mechanics and therefore, you know, it works this way. Do you know what I mean? It'd be nothing that a Victoria 3 player wouldn't already know. You enjoy my Thomas Sowell coverage. Thank you. Bernanke. I haven't read Bernanke's book. I do find it funny that it's called The Courage to Act when it's about him. being courageous. Sorry, chat isn't working for those who aren't here. But anyway. Yeah, but Bernanke, his work on the the Great Depression and the Federal Reserve is really valuable. I think he was a really valuable historian of that, and I think he took a bunch of moves during the financial crisis which were better than what they did in the Great Depression, and I think which he believed would be the best thing. But ultimately, the massive expansion of monetary stimulus and what it did to interest rates and what it did to like venture capital, how it's just been flush with cash and credit. The entire financial sector, Wall Street, also applies, to the City of London to a lesser extent, because the Bank of England have done similar things, and dollars also have a knock-on effect on the whole world. But I think that availability has like propelled companies like Uber, like venture cap. There was just so much money in the 2010s, the loose credit era, and so many of these companies like Uber and stuff just got so much credit. And I think economists don't have that grasp. This is one thing I'm talking about in the coffee video. I almost did this and I was like, no, it's a bridge too far. But the difference between monetary and fiscal stimulus. If you look at fiscal stimulus, you're talking about things like physical infrastructure, things like social infrastructure, things like research and development, those kinds of things that governments invest directly in. And I think those, not only do I think those have a positive effect on economic growth, I think they create an economy that is better for people holistically. Whereas private monetary policy basically increases credit, right? And the private sector tends to benefit more. So you're looking at a shift from a public sector economy to a private sector economy when you have austerity, tight fiscal policy with loose monetary policy. And I think what economists didn't appreciate when they were advocating that was the qualitative difference there. Particularly when you have such freely available credit that you get horrible companies like being funded artificially. Charlie Kirk was talked about. I mean, it's so funny how they're weirdly Austrian, those guys, because it's just like, ugh. I think the problem is that you're producing actual educational content that demands serious engagement, while video essay has just become a staple cookie cutter talking to camera slot video format. Yeah, I mean, I want to try not to be too up my own arse, but like, yeah, basically, so many video essays now. I don't watch video essays that much anymore. It's a really saturated I mean, there's a few where you're just like, it's got a good title and you're like, oh, I thought of that, maybe. And then, I mean, the Ground News video we just watched is a bit like that, except it's much longer, the standard left-wing video essay. And you just don't get that much out of it. And you're like, this could have been a tweet. The Thomas Sowell series will come to a close soon. Talk to Yanis Varoufakis about gaming economics. Dwarf Fortress. Money in Dwarf Fortress. Okay. Thanks. I'm glad you liked the coffee video. I mean, I've been doing more shorts as well, which helps with reach. But short, yeah. I think my Simpsons one would be like, We Are Living Under Mr. Burns, which I think is a kind of, it would be a good way of getting into the billionaire angle. Do I drink my coffee black? Yes, I do. Well, Victoria 3 is a bit heterodox in that it has Victoria 3 has a supply chain crisis. So institution, I don't know, maybe you don't need to label it, but like the neoclassical economics, things generally are substitutable. Whereas if you've got like specific inputs and outputs, you can have a supply chain crisis, and it's quite easy to have one in Victoria 3. Coffee shop video was the best you've seen in ages. Oh, thank you. A part 2. I don't know what that would go into. Is that a happy light behind me? Is that a type of light? I don't know. I don't think so. Hey, you turned it red. You turned it angry. Whoa. Come on. Right. No, it's an orc smear. Yeah, AI is collapsing. I mean, the problem is whether the AI sector is going to collapse. I mean, collapse. The bubble will burst in some way, right? But whether or not that's going to happen, the time frame of social media and YouTube is so short. Like, don't forget, the housing bubble, it went on for like over a decade. Yeah, economies in video games are simplified. You're right, Lord Azure. Like, yeah, you have to be able to program them and you have to be able to manage them. So, like, there's not that much insightful I can say. Maybe specific episodes. Yeah, the market stays irrational longer than you can stay solvent. That's the truth. That's the truth. Nearly all video game economies are basically centrally planned. Well, in Victoria 3, you literally go into individual industries and modify their techniques, or you can do. I think some of the expansions have maybe allowed a little bit more automatic laissez-faire adjustment, but there's no game if it's just like, you're like, oh, okay, it's completely decentralized economy. What are you supposed to do? A US streamer on Deptford's Harvest Hoods. They were yapping about how ghetto the place is next to Market Yard. Deptford's Hardest Hoods. Is this like going to be those, I visited the worst... Who is it? What channel is that? Tottenham. I think the thing about AI is, it is, it's finding a use case. Claude in particular, LSE has like an institutional subscription to Claude, and it is useful. But it's also, I made this point in my AI video, right? Like, the reason it's so useful is because so many of our jobs are like busy work. So many of our jobs are like the type of job that AI would be good at. If we were all artists and creatives and stuff, AI would be much less useful. Or if we were all, cleaners or builders, then it would be completely useless.
This is where they call Peeps Estate, very iconic.
Man, this is like 50 minutes long. I can't handle, I don't really like videos like, World's Deadliest Men, that kind of, I never like that type of thing. I just don't care. I mean, if AI were used properly, it would get rid of all the bullshit jobs. Obviously, it's going to be used to enrich a bunch of absolute arseholes. I was thinking about researching NEETs. Young people not in education, employment or training. Does anyone remember this? So this is interim report from the government, no less. Oh, Jesus. I mean, this is... that's a real report. That is a proper report. I'd have to do like a... Don't summarize it with AI. I wanted to read it for fuck's... Jesus Christ, man. Give me that shit. Where's the PDF? Convert to PDF, sorry. Okay, there it is. I mean, okay, Danny Dyer's documentaries are very... Like, wait 1 second. What's the Danny Dyer one? Where? Wait. He dresses up, right? He dresses up.
I'm Danny Dyer. Playing hard men and acting tough has been my bread and butter. But now I've got a new role. I'm tracking down some of the most feared men in the world, operating on both sides of the law. I'm going to find out what makes them tick, how they got their fearsome reputations, and why they're considered to be some of the world's deadliest men.
1 second. There was one. There was one that was like, he was a bouncer. Is it in Blackpool? But they like, I think they get Danny Dyer. They get him to put a disguise on, right? Right, they get him to put a disguise on. There's no economics in this stream anymore. Right.
So I take some time to myself. In Blackpool at this time of year, that's not a problem. It's time for me to get my head in the game and sort myself out for tonight.
What? So...
I like the whistle. Now I've got the suit. I'm heading back to Steve's to get into makeup and finish off.
So they tried to disguise it. One second.
Right. Mug. Right. Been waiting around all day. Tension's building now. I just want to get on the door and I want to experience it. So, you know, the time's come for me to start getting into my disguise.
So he's bouncing. He's going to bounce, right?
I've been told it's going to take a couple of hours. I just hope this works. If I'm spotted tonight, I won't be able to work the door and see Steve in action. Simon Jordan, eat your heart out.
Right.
So you would never think it's me, but I'm meant to be a doorman. Look at me.
They like put a blonde wig on him, shaved him, right? He didn't even have a beard really, and like put glasses on him. It just doesn't. That's not a disguise. And like if you watch the full thing, right? He actually gets recognized. Obviously, he gets recognized. Someone's just like, "You're Danny Dyer."
I look like I should be sitting in a fucking library.
I mean, that is true, but also you just look like Danny Dyer. So, yeah. I mean, that is hilarious. It's amazing. That is it is such a bad disguise. I can't. Surely the comments are like about the disguise. That disguise, yeah. Oh, anyway. I guess there's a 250-page report here. Man. You know, Helena, she invited me, No Justice MTG, she invited me on to Novara to talk about this, but I was like, it was really short notice. Because it's one of those things, I'm so not a hot takes person, it like hits the airwaves, right? This report comes out last week, everyone's talking about it, and everyone's expected to have opinions on it straight away. I'm like, well, obviously I'd need to read this entire report before I developed an opinion. Yeah. And I wonder who wrote. I mean, this will be like some civil servant, right? Like wrote something. Ooh, ooh. It's tough. Oh, sorry, those are footnotes. The direct economic cost output foregone. Man, why is this written in this way? They're often numbered, aren't they? This is not a record of passivity, it is a record of failure. Okay. Wow. Those young people did not move on. They are still here, still waiting, still paying the price for a country that has chosen repeatedly and with full knowledge of the consequences to administer the problem rather than solve it. This review says, enough. Not another program, not another pilot, a system. Oh, not another pilot, a system. Built around participation, accountable for outcomes, permanent in its architecture, with new ladders of opportunity. Funded at a level that treats young people as an investment, not a cost. Resilient to the problems of tomorrow in a labour market which is likely at the beginning of yet another transformation, and worthy of the generation it is supposed to serve. A new mindset is needed. Our country can choose differently, one that prioritises the next generation. This review demands that it does. Just do UBI and get on with it. Yeah, I was literally about to say that, Skyride. Lots of it's not X, it's Y. Yeah. It's not X, it's Y is very AI. I mean, $1 million lives. Nearly one. This really does. This report reads like it was written by it reads like it was written by a good AI. It's not ChatGPT, I don't think. But it reads like Claude. Wait, who's this written by? Crown copyright 20. Oh, Forward. Sorry, okay. In fairness, okay, it's formatted badly, but I did convert it to a PDF. I didn't. But I did not find it only in data tables and research papers. I found it in communities where I don't think I could read this report. I think it's really annoying. It might be AI. You do also though, it's difficult. Sometimes it's difficult to guess whether something's AI because like sometimes the reason AI writes in a certain way is because so many insufferable people in annoying jobs write in a certain way. You know. So, Office for National Statistics. I mean, brilliant. So, this is better, right? What is it? It's 1 million, yeah. 1 million NEETs. NEET, July. Can we not... One thing that really annoys me about ONS, and this is common for like a lot of data, it only goes back a few years, right? I want to see what it was like before COVID, before the financial crisis, before Brexit. Where can I get like a good report on NEETs? Alan Milburn. See, the Resolution Foundation. Now there's a foundation you can set your watch to. So this was only on the 28th of April. You guys might not be able to see it. So that was like a month or so before the government report. So it fell for the 2010s, right? Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Sparking the upcoming government review led by Alan Milburn. Who is Alan Milburn? A British politician who served... Okay. Chancellor of Lancaster University. He's done some stuff. He's done some stuff. I don't know. Does it have a solution section? Well, I don't think so. Ah. Look at all those M dashes. The fork in the road. Yeah, kind of sucks. There are some interviews with young people though. That could be kind of interesting. Well, a lot of NEETs. A lot of young people are talking about investing, aren't they? So it's like people want to gain because capital share has increased, right? And a lot of people are probably wanting to get on that. And so that's why more people are wanting to or having to invest, whether for pensions or as an alternative to jobs or just to supplement their income. So I can see investing becoming more common in an economy with a greater capital share. But investment income tends to be more unequal than labour income. Yeah, Skyride, do it. Tell us. Tell us what you found. Find if this is AI generated. The Cameron government changed the NEET definition. That's interesting. But yeah. A million NEETs versus a million. 1 million NEETs versus the sun. Who would win? You see overuse of colons, overuse of M dashes, too many it's not X, it's Y statements. It does feel a bit AI-y. And, you know, man's the Chancellor of Lancaster University, so he's probably busy. Who knows? I mean, it could be useful information, but I don't think I can read 250 pages of it. Do certain populations resist investing on ethical grounds? Well, yeah, I mean, we were having that discussion earlier. Some people who are more progressive don't want to. Yeah. Not doing NEETs in its entirety today. Right. I'm gonna call the stream. I'm gonna call the stream now. Better, you know, to let it go on for a shorter period than drag it out. But we are so close to 250,000. We're out now to 249,993. Yeah. But yeah, that's it. We'll do it. I'll go. I've got to eat, and I'm playing football later, so you know. But yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. And you know, I'll see you.